Hi guys, right, great stuff. So this is CVP. We've been talking about this in our revision, hadn't we? And we said that, okay, so it says the dilemma makes a product that is aimed at the teenage leisure market in the UK. After a number of successful years, they're considering whether to expand their production by a factor of 50% to take advantage of rising demand. So you have some information given to you here that will help you determine a number of things, and so they give you some tasks. So they want the break-even point. So let's do that first for the current and the anticipated situation. So of course you've had a go, but let's look at the elements required for working out break-even, right? So we've said that we know we need these details here for discussing break even, right? I mean, that's very much the case. So you have the selling price of one unit is £1.70. The variable cost of one unit is £1.40. So they're making a contribution of 30p on every unit, right? 30p. And the question says that fixed costs are currently 96,000. So if fixed costs are currently 96,000, the question we should be asking is, how many units do we need to sell? How many units do we need to sell to break even, right? So 96,000 divided by 0.3 is equal to 320,000. So that's 320,000 units. So currently, as we are, you would argue that the break even is 320,000 units, right? And the sales revenue at this point will simply be the 320,000 times the £1.70, right? Because that's what they're asking us. What's break-even revenue, sales revenue at this point? So multiply that by 1.7, and you have 544,000. And there you are, right? So then they want the annual profit given the current situation. And so if you want the annual profit, well, I mean, it's just working out profit. I mean, there's two ways to do this. Personally, I think you should do this creatively. You should say, well, 500,000 units at contribution of 30p, and then deduct the fixed costs, because that's a really good way of doing it. It shows you understand what's going on here. Yes, the fixed costs, right? The fixed costs are 96,000. And they're making 30p on every unit. So multiply that by the 500,000 units, forgive me. It's 500,000 times the 30p gives you 150,000. Right? That's 150,000. That's your contribution on this, and then take away your fixed costs, and you will have 54. Yes, minus 96,000, and you have 54,000. Right? So your profit, your annual profit is 54,000. So this is all for the present situation. Let's look at the margin of safety. So we know the break even is 320 units. 320,000 units. You're hoping to make 500,000 units. So you can fall by this amount, if you like. You can fall by a factor of, or when I say a factor, you can fall by how many ever so units. You can fall by 180,000 units and you will hit break even, right? So I haven't looked at the answers, but I would say you can fall by 180,000 units. But as a fraction, I would say you can fall at 180,000 divided by 500,000. But as a percentage, personally, right? Because remember that falling margin of safety is based on the budgeted position, right? And you can then fall towards the break even. So that's 180,000 divided by 500,000, which is 36%. So you can fall by 36%, and you would hit break even. So let's kind of put this in a table. So that we can, because we're going to go ahead and do the new situation and then compare, right? Let's just get all of this data somewhere that we can have. So we're going to put present situation, break even 320,000 units, and annual profit 54,000, and margin of safety 36%. Okay, cool, great. So let's come back here and look at the new situation. So the question is telling us that if you go ahead with this increase, your fixed cost will increase by 34,000. So we're just going to work out what the new figures are. This takes us to 130,000, doesn't it? Right? It says the variable cost will fall by by 5p. So this becomes, the new figure becomes £1.35, and the selling price will reduce by 10p. So this becomes £1.60. So I have new figures to work with in effect. So again, I simply have selling price £1.60, take away the new variable cost of £1.35, right? And then you have there £1.60 minus £1.35 takes us to 25p. So your new contribution per unit is 25p, and your fixed costs are £130,000. So £130,000, right, divided by 25p. I'm simply asking how many 25p's am I going to have to do to get to 130,000. So you have 130,000 divided by 25p, and I have 520,000 units that I need to break even. So I'm just going to write that here, break even 520,000 units. Right, that's the first thing. Right, then when we talk about where are we? This is what you need. You will need to break even. Current sales. I think I have that right. I'm just looking. It says after a number of this, considering expanding their production capability by a factor of 50. So that will be the case. I'm just looking for the figure to help me with annual, because the question is saying that. Well, let's find break. At this point, break-even revenue, of course, is here you are, 520 times £1.60, right? Because that's the case. So 520,000 times £1.60 is 832,000, right? Because the new selling price is £1.60 a unit. You're selling 520 of those, so you have 832,000. I didn't even, so I'll just write here revenue 832,000. The break even here was 300. Sorry, the break even revenue here was 320,000 times 1.7, wasn't it? And this, I'll just write here revenue 544,000. Remember the break even revenue. This is break even units. This was the present situation. This is the proposed. This is the proposed situation. Okay. Right. Here we are. What I'm interested in very quickly is just quickly finding the new current sale. And for me, this seems the best option here, really. I mean, I wish they could have given me a different way of saying it. Your exam will be clearer. It says here, they expand their production capability by a factor of 50. So I'm going to assume here that expanding means that you're intending on going from 500,000 to another 50% of this, and 50% of this is 250,000, right? So this will be your new sort of capability would be to sell 750,000, because you see I needed to calculate the annual profit, and the annual profit is at 750,000 units. So excuse me, 750,000 units at a contribution of 0.25, right? Because that's really the contribution. If I know the contribution, I can just multiply that by the number of units. So 750,000 times 0.25 gives me 187,500. And then I take away the new the new fixed costs in total. Yes, the new fixed costs in total, and that gives us a profit of 57,500. So proposed situation, annual profits 57,500, and let's look at the margin of safety. The margin of safety, we are talking about 750,000 units against a break even of 520,000, 750,000 units. So this is our break even. This is what we're proposing to sell, and the break even is the difference, right? So 750,000 minus 520,000 gives you 230,000. So we have 230,000 falling from here. So it's 230,000 as a percentage of the 750,000, which is 30%. 30%. So the margin of safety is not as good as the prior unit. Yes, you have higher annual profits, but you also have a higher break-even situation. So just looking at this, you can sort of, what you're really trying to do is to compare. You're trying to compare break-even. You're sort of saying, well, it's all well and good to expand, but you're going to need to sell more units to even break even, because your fixed costs are going up. So yes, you're expanding. So it's quite a big jump if you look at that. You can almost compare this as a percentage. And when you look at after all that effort, you see that your annual profits have only increased by 3,500. So you're trying to let the examiner know, because the last question is asking you to discuss what your advice would be. But really the argument here is that given the, I think it's, yeah, so if you look at here, it talks about the fact that the concern is that the total number of teenagers is falling, although he feels that in future they may have more money. He also asks if future changes in material pricing have been taken into account, and felt that much more confident about the plan, and said the sales directors always feel confident. Sales have been rising, and the number of teenagers is increasing. The truth is that fashion is fast. So you're trying to, I mean, it's a level 3 program, I accept, but if you can bring in some of these external ideas around the fact that fashion is fast, opinions can change, social norms can change, and if you have that scenario, you're going to be lumbered with quite a heavy fixed cost without not being able to increase your, I mean, with inflation as well, these fixed costs could keep going up, and you may not be able to increase your price. It is fast fashion. After all, you've had to reduce the price from £1.70 to £1.60. So I think anything rational that you argue to compare each of these, but highlighting the sudden need to really ramp up production to just cover your fixed costs isn't balanced against the small rise in profit. So you should really compare the two, maybe as a percentage if you can. So you should, for strong marks, you should say break even has increased 520,000, take away 320,000, because I'm comparing both break evens from both situations, right? And then that gives you, that's a 200,000 increase. So you want to compare 200,000, you want to look at that 200,000 as a percentage of the original position, 320. And that's quite high. That's over 50%. So break even has increased to 200,000 over 320,000. Great, you can do that. 200,000 divided by 320,000 gives you, that's a 62.5% increase in break even, right? With 3,500 divided by 54,000, that's 3,500. The difference between divided by that, which is nothing. 3,500 divided by 54,000 is a 6% increase in profits, and then you have a fall in your margin of safety given this scenario. So those are the sort of ideas that you should be playing with. Yeah, cool, great stuff.